It's been a while since I've done an Elder Scrolls lore video, hasn't it? Let's fix that, shall we? What's up guys, Acer Thorn here, and welcome to another Elder Scrolls lore video. One of the biggest reasons I haven't done an Elder Scrolls lore video in a long time is because, well, I'm kinda running out of stuff to talk about. So today, I suppose I could talk about some of the things I can't normally talk about, because there's just not enough information for me to make regular videos about. The Elder Scrolls is an incredibly lore-rich franchise. Bethesda games may have bugs out the wazoo, but if there's one thing they consistently hit it out of the park on, it's their world building. However, just because most of the things in the franchise have an in-universe explanation behind them, doesn't mean they all do. My jaw hit the floor when I read Orsinium and the Orcs, and I realized that Orcs being a playable race from Morrowind to the present while they were just beasts in Arena and Daggerfall wasn't actually a retcon after all. Or how a racial polygyny establishes a bright line rule for how the races of Tamriel can reproduce with each other and how the offspring will come out. However, for every little detail that Bethesda pays close attention to, there are just as many details that Bethesda kinda glosses over. Today, I'd like to share with you not one, not 6.5, but 3 questions about Elder Scrolls lore that have not yet been answered. Number 1. What does it mean to have the papers? If you read the Heavy Armor skill book Orsinium and the Orcs, and I mean actually read the book, don't just pick it up, get the skill up, and then put it back down again, it documents a landmark court proceeding in Tamriel, whereby an orc, one gro-Nagrom by name, managed to achieve legal ownership of a parcel of land that would later become the orcish province of Orsinia. This provides an in-universe context for how orcs were seen as savage beasts in Arena and Daggerfall, while appearing as playable races in Morrowind and beyond. In this famous court proceeding, the judge stated that because the orc had the paperwork to the parcel of land, his claim to the parcel of land was just as valid as Bowen, the Breton noble who was also contesting for ownership of it. The judge famously stated that even a pig or a slaughterfish could own land in Tamriel if it just had the paperwork for it. However, that begs the question, what exactly does it mean to have the papers? The book Orsinium and the Orcs started in the middle of the case. At the stage of the proceeding where we started following, all parties were in unanimous agreement that Gordwog had the papers, whatever that means. Even Bowen didn't dispute that Gordwog had the papers. So because that potential dispute had already been ironed out, assuming it ever was a dispute in the first place, that book never got the chance to explore that concept in depth, and yet it needs to be explored. In order to have the papers, is it merely necessary that Gordwog be holding the papers in his hand at any particular point in time? Kind of like that episode in Family Guy where James Woods stole Peter's wallet and therefore stole his identity? If so, then why doesn't Bowen just physically wrest the papers from Gordwog's hands? And couldn't literally anybody just physically steal the deeds to land from anybody and claim legal ownership of the land itself? If so, why haven't we had a Thieves Guild quest where we steal someone's deed to their manor? No, what is most likely the case is that Gordwog had legally recognized ownership of the paperwork, and therefore had a legal claim to the parcel of land that corresponds to the paperwork. However, that still begs the question, how did Gordwog obtain legal ownership of the papers? How exactly does one go about obtaining the paperwork? Considering that it was unprecedented at the time for an orc to have a legal claim to land, then there must be some procedure to obtaining ownership of the papers. Presumably, that ownership must entail more than simply walking up to some government agency and putting a bag of gold in their hand, which is how the player typically buys land in the Elder Scrolls games. That is something that needs to be taken into consideration when coming up with an answer to this unanswered question. When the player purchases a parcel of land, presumably the land is owned by the government. The only time in the entire Elder Scrolls franchise we ever purchase land directly from its previous owner is the Oblivion side quest where spirits have a lease. In all other cases, we purchase land from the government. However, whether we purchase the land from the government or its previous owner, it's usually a fairly straightforward process. There was a clear definitive owner, whether that owner was the government or someone else, and now you're the clear definitive owner. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. However, I find it impossible to believe that this is how it works in Universe. This has to simply be a gameplay mechanic. Why? Well, because if that were the case, I find it impossible to believe that orcs and other beast races having a claim to land would be the least bit unprecedented in Tamriel. Bear in mind that, especially in Oblivion, where some houses are able to be purchased at the start of the game without needing to be built up your fame or get on good terms with the local heads of state, becoming a landowner in Tamriel often requires little more than dumping a bag of gold on the table and presumably signing some papers. The broker never asks where the gold came from. You could have gotten this gold by robbing a caravan, and they wouldn't care. The only thing you have to be capable of doing is A, counting money, and B, being able to read and write. If that were all it took in Universe, beast races would be owning land all the time, so how is Gortwog even the least bit special in this regard? No, there has to be some kind of complicated procedure in Universe to obtaining legal ownership of a deed to land. Something that, while not discriminating against the races per se, still has the disparate impact of discriminating against races that aren't already fully equal citizens. Kind of like how literacy tests and poll taxes used to be used by southern states in the real-life United States because they de facto kept black people from voting without actually officially banning black people from voting. So as you can see, coming up with an explanation for how this works is a lot trickier than it sounds at first glance. So I would very much appreciate if Bethesda, during the Elder Scrolls 6, gave us an explanation as to exactly how this works. Number 2. What is the in-universe translation of Nagasta Kavada Kavakis? That book is actually one of the most unique books in all of the Elder Scrolls. What's so unique about it, you ask? Well, it makes no sense. Now, there are plenty of books in the Elder Scrolls that don't make sense. There are plenty of books in the franchise that are written in incomprehensible text. Sometimes the books can be translated by devout Elder Scrolls fans, sometimes they are not. Nagasta Kavada Kavakis is one book that has been translated by devout Elder Scrolls fans, and the translation makes no sense. Upon translating the book, it makes references to things such as the internet and copyright, neither of which exist in the Elder Scrolls universe. So this translation cannot possibly be canon. In fact, the text isn't even an original work by Bethesda, but was instead just copied and pasted from some webpage that apparently doesn't exist anymore, because whenever I click on the link to take me there, I get what I assume, based on the few characters I can actually read, to be an ad to buy this domain name. No wonder this book's translation doesn't make any sense in Universe. It wasn't even originally about the Elder Scrolls lore. Now, some of you might argue that this book isn't supposed to make sense in Universe. Much like the Elder Scrolls themselves, the text is intentionally incoherent. When a Moth Priest reads an Elder Scroll, they aren't translating the Elder Script per se. Rather, the Elder Script itself changes into the language that is most familiar to the reader. As such, the scrolls cannot be translated by conventional means, and that is by design. That may be true, but you are forgetting something rather important about the Elder Scrolls themselves. Yes, the Elder Script has no real-life counterpart it can be translated into, like the Daedric alphabet. However, the scrolls also have no rhyme or reason for their character placement. These characters just appear randomly on the page. It's not like there's a handful of Elder Script characters in a row in order to create words, with words separated by spaces and ending with a punctuation mark in order to create sentences. It's more like if you just took a bunch of objects shaped like the Elder Script, put them in a box, turned that box upside down, dumped those Elder Script letters onto the kitchen table, and had that be what the scroll looked like. By contrast, Nagasta Kavada Kavakis is clearly meant to be translatable. There are clearly letters. These letters clearly group together to form words. These words group together to form sentences, and those sentences end with periods. There is a clear method to this book's madness. Because this book can be translated into a real-life language, even if that translation is completely non-canon, that means that this language, just like its real-life counterpart, has its own rules of spelling, grammar, and punctuation. It is clear that this book is meant to be translated by scholars of necromancy, not that readers are supposed to use some magical means to physically extract information from the pages. I would love to see the in-universe contents of this book revealed in the Elder Scrolls 6. It's a great mystery that has existed since Morrowind, and it honestly deserves to finally have an answer to it. And number 3. The Magna Gi. What are they doing now? As you are no doubt aware, the Aedra are the gods who participated in the creation of the mortal world, and the Daedra are the gods who didn't participate in the creation of the mortal world. However, if you're only a casual fan of the Elder Scrolls, you might be interested to hear that there are actually a group of gods who are in between, the Magna Gi. These are gods who originally signed up to participate in the creation of the mortal world, but upon realizing that Lorkhan, the trickster god, had failed to disclose that this creation would end up destroying their bodies, killed Lorkhan for his treachery and then flew the coop, ripping holes in the fabric of space and time. These holes became the sun and stars. The most famous Magna Gi is Magnus. You may have heard him casually name-dropped a few times during Skyrim's College of Winterhold questline. So the Magna Gi contributed part of themselves in order to partially realize the plan of Mundus. In doing so, they gave up parts of their beings. The Daedra, who didn't participate at all in the creation of Mundus, have consistently corporeal bodies. The Aedra, who gave up the vast majority of their beings, effectively became Mundus itself. What's left of their bodies float around the Mundus solar system as the planets, so they don't have any bodies anymore. Meanwhile, the Magna Gi still technically have bodies, but incorporeal ones. Picture how Lord Voldemort was in between his two reigns of terror, and you'll get the idea. That's all fine and good, but there's a slight problem. The story of the creation of Mundus is literally the last we have heard of the Magna Gi. The Daedric princes routinely meddle in mortal affairs, so we get regular checkups as to what exactly they're up to. With the Aedra, it makes sense that we wouldn't hear from them since the creation of Mundus, since, as we just established, their bodies were sacrificed almost completely to create Mundus, meaning that they effectively ceased to exist. But the Magna Gi? They are still out there. They still possess some degree of self-awareness and some ability to act independently of each other. Unlike the Aedra, they can still do stuff. They may not be able to do as much stuff as the Daedra, but they can still do stuff. So that leaves us with the question, if they can still do stuff, what exactly are they doing? Now, wouldn't that be an interesting shake-up to the Elder Scrolls formula? Instead of having the typical formula of main quest, faction quest lines, and Daedric quests, we could also have some quests given to us by the Magna Gi. Maybe one Magna Gi might have discovered a way to regain a body, but he needs a mortal champion to do the actual ritual for him, since, he's a formless ball of energy and doesn't have his own set of opposable thumbs. Then, we'd have a new Daedric Prince to give quests in the Elder Scrolls 7 onward. But as it stands, what the Magna Gi have been up to since the creation of Mundus is an unanswered question of Elder Scrolls lore. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Leave a comment if you'd like to see more unanswered questions of Elder Scrolls lore. I might make this into a series if it gets a lot of views. In the meantime, however, I am Acerthorn, and I will see you guys later.